I'd like to invite the panelists one by one. First panelist, Amita Lulla, with over 12 years of experience in the F&B industry, with the likes of Taj Group, ITC Hotels, Accor Group, Carlsberg, and a local brand champion like Simply South. So, Amrita, please. And the second panelist for the day is Divya, a professional chef with over 15 years of experience, promoter and director of SnackerStreet.
Yes.
That's our panelist number 2. The panelist number 3, Mr. Dhunji, with over 35 years of rich experience, ex-CEO of Welcome Heritage and ITC Group, led multiple properties in various locations for the group over 3.5 decades. Last but not the least, a local hero, Mr. Shankar, founder of F9 Test Kitchen, with over 2 to 3 decades of professional experience in the F&B industry. Also worked with legendary brands like Holiday Inn, Oberoi, Capital Hotel Dubai. And the moderator for the session, for such a interesting and amazing topic, I thought we needed a champion there. So the most loved gentleman in Hyderabad, with over 4 to 5 decades of cross-vertical experience, including F&B, advertising, performing arts and much more, the big daddy of Hyderabad, Vijay Marur.
Thank you, Rahul. If those of you who don't know, Rahul is also an actor, and what he just did was an amazing piece of acting. So, anyway, the brief given to me is let not any of the panelists stray. Let them stick to the point, and let's make it a nice, tight session. But the brief was given to me vis-a-vis the panelists. Nobody told me to be tight. So I'm going to take a little liberty and start off by telling you that I'm sure all of us know that the first concept of taste or what you like and the kind of food that you want to eat is driven by your mother, because she's the lady who obviously feeds you when you're a child. So it is a bit of a surprise that there are not as many women doing the cooking thing as men. And the first time Gopi told me about the subject, a memory flashed in my head, which is obviously a myth, but when we moved to Hyderabad, we had a neighbor who had a cook, and he was a male cook, and Subbarao, I think was his name. Subbarao, I mean, I was too young to know the word, but later on I realized, was not gay, but he was effeminate. You know, he would walk like that, and, you know, he would talk, yeah, Tindi and the Kandi, you know, that kind of thing. So a childhood memory said any man who cooks must be thoda teda. You know, so I grew up with that thought. My father never cooked for me. It was always a mother who made things. I mean, just to shorten the story, today I cook for my children, feeling very good about the fact that I can cook. So I said, this whole thing of where did the women lose out? You know, what happened? Why did suddenly a really a nice industry which could have been so much more feminine dominated has become a completely male dominated situation? So I said, who do I talk to amongst these people? Asking Divya, why aren't more women? I'm sure she'll have her own stories. But between Dhunji and Shankar, I think they've hired more people in the business of hoteliering than any of us in this room. So maybe we should start with, let's say, the corporate honcho, Dhunji. Why less women?
Firstly, the job in the kitchen is not easy for men. Therefore, for a lady, it is much less easier. At the entry level itself, at the point of joining the catering college, there itself we see that there are very, very few ladies or women who join at the college level. Just about 2 weeks ago, I had given a talk at the Indian Institute of Hotel Management, Shakti, and out of a batch of 120 candidates, there were just 7 lady candidates, lady students. The next challenge, you can say, is the usual work-life balance. So I'm not going to say work-life balance, I'm going to say work-child balance. In India, we all know that the ladies, when they progress in years, somewhere at the age of 24, 25, they are going to get married. And then at the age of 27, probably they'll get their first child. So, what has the industry done to address the situation of the work-child balance? Must she look after the child? Which she must. She has to. But can she look after the child at home? Or can she look after the child at the workplace, which is the hotel? At this point of time, hotels have not really addressed this situation. Then of course, we can take care of the child at the workplace as well as you can do it at the house. In other words, hotels have not really as yet addressed creche, professional creche, not where you just take your child and you drop them off into a room and where there's a child of 2 years and 3 years, right up to 10 years playing with each other and making a lot of noise. I've been into some of the creches myself, and you open it and you find more crying and more yelling and more sort of stress rather than making it easier for them in terms of engaging them. So you have these, what do you call these, matrons or who are looking after the children. But that's not enough. If you had a kind of a small little kindergarten or a play school, rather than calling a chef, a creche, that would have been, or that can be more meaningful. And then you would have drawn more ladies into this industry. Another thing is timings. I'm not saying that the ladies don't work hard. In fact, my opinion is that the ladies work equally hard, or if not, much better, or much harder. But when you come to a hotel and you know that the meal timings are breakfast, lunch and dinner, it's very difficult for a lady to spend 2 hours for breakfast, go back home and come back for lunch, and then go back home and come back for dinner. That is a huge challenge. So today, where do the ladies get into? There are ladies working in the kitchen in the hotel industry, but most of them opt for the bakery, confectionery and the patisserie. So whatever figures that we have today are that they join, if they want, then they opt for the bakery, confectionery and patisserie, or they become successful entrepreneurs like Divya. Okay. They don't want to be part of the hotel. We'll talk about it a little later. I have some more points to share with you later. But as a starter, that's from my side, and over to you, Vijay.
May I also ask for your cooperation and join me in 1 minute of silence in memory of something called a catering college, which was the precursor to the IHMs. When Dhunji is telling me about 120 students who came, and out of them only 7 were girls, I personally was shocked. When I studied in Chennai, we used to drive almost every possible weekend, if not during the week, to catering college, which was beyond Adyar. Huh? And the reason we went there was catering college always used to have many pretty girls. And they would allow us to sample the food that they had cooked in class. This, going to catering college to meet the girls, I thought was very peculiar to Chennai. Till I landed up in Bombay, and I found that the catering college there also had a lot of really smart, attractive, empowered women who were part of the. So if you're saying the ratios have gone down to 120:7, I'm deeply saddened because I have taken lectures and stuff, and I've seen a lot of girls in the catering colleges. But one organization that I've been fortunate enough to look at from the time it was literally born is Fusion 9. I also know that there is a strong feminine backbone to Fusion 9. Shankar's wife, good friends. Instead of going into details, I'm saying I know that there has been a very strong female contribution to your story. You can't deny it. So, it never struck me that while here was Shankar, who was obviously very, very open to the female participation in the process of building the brand called F9, never had a female chef, to my knowledge. You had. I understand. But one, the hundreds of reasons why a female chef wasn't hired by Fusion 9, it's not for me to answer. It is for Shankar.
I didn't give much choice. She puts my brain all the time. Anyway, having said that, Dhunji more or less summarized the industry perspective, but let me give you a micro from the kitchen point of view. And it's not just today. I'm talking 1986 when I joined the Marur Hotels, and there are two issues there. I mean, we were a batch of about 40 odd people, and there were about 8 girls in the batch, and obviously they all went into front office and service. Not one of them came into the kitchen. The challenges were very, very clear in terms of we ourselves, being from a catering college and then further polished with overall school, we were entering into a kitchen which was completely dominated by chefs of the old school, which was primarily illiterate, uneducated, highly insecure in their jobs, and one fact was very clear that within a couple of years we will be going over them in terms of rank and file as such. So that was a challenge, being a male or female, we had to overcome. It was not easy at all. And even in our own batch of 12 of us who went into the chefs, I think only 3 of us survived. 9 of them dropped out. They couldn't take the pressure of dealing with that old school of working, and also at the same time the overall physical pressure demanding. So that has been there inherently all through. It is not a new story today. It was there in '86. In fact, all I can think, if I back 33, 34 years, I think there's only I can think of Manisha Basin, who was a brand unit one, me, I think so, who's been the executive chef, currently still serving in the system. And of course, there are 2 or 3, but I'm talking of our generation. Yeah. And so this issue has been there, and it's purely physically demanding in terms of timings, in terms of odd hours, in terms of colleague behavioral patterns. In fact, I would say it's getting a little better now. And the latest trend, I mean, I'm from that school of this, where yes, to get the work done, there's constant pressure, there's a real-time pressure to get the job done. So we use language, we use volume, we use all sorts of pressure to get the job done. And now today I'm reading all around that even Michelin chefs are told not to start screaming because the Gen Y doesn't believe in being screamed at. They run out. So I myself asked myself that I have a team of about 1,500 odd people working out here now. I need to change myself. Otherwise, I do have fortunately, that generation of chefs, we don't have attrition at all. I mean, now I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years now. We have the same set of people still functioning, but they're all above 40 plus category. It is the 20 plus is the challenge today. So we need to change on that levels, and that's transformation we are bringing upon ourselves. How we are going to achieve it, God only knows. But my head doesn't stop screaming.
There's Amita. Amita is a partner in a lovely restaurant called Simply South. Simply South is chefed by a gentleman by the name of Chalpati. And from whatever I've seen between Amita's background and her personality and Chalpati's background and his personality, they seem to have struck a fairly decent balance in terms of making sure that the product works. Alright? Now I said, just for one moment, I was trying to imagine Chalpati as a woman.
She is wearing the pants.
Right, that's it. So, just imagine if Chalpati was a lady.
And what am I then?
You're Amita.
I'm still me.
You're Amita. I'm not playing around with you. You know.
There would be cat fights which we don't want to get into. So yeah, Chef and I worked together with Mr. Gavrana many years back in Kakatiya. And what Mr. Gavrana was saying about gender roles, I want to take up on that. We did have a colleague who had a very young child. And Mr. Gavrana as a GM was nice enough to give her flexi hours. But I saw that it was not an option for most of the people in the industry. I left a corporate job when I had my child because I knew I couldn't go back to working 16 hours a day that I was doing at one point. So this is of course a choice that we make, right? This is not something that somebody is shoving down our throat. So it is a choice I've made. It is a choice all of us make at some point, saying that okay, this is what we want to do. Coming back to your question, I can't imagine that. I think I have Chandu the way he is. So that we have our streaming matches, we have our fights. But somewhere our roles are very clear. Chef knows that okay, the kitchen is completely his domain. And even though there are times where I push him and I nag him into doing stuff that I think should be there in terms of cuisine wise, he will still stick to his ground. I will still stick to, he says, okay, you know, the front is yours, you handle it, I'm not coming there. Don't make me come into the restaurant. But, so this is not gender roles, but this is personality roles that work with both of us. He is more the background kind of, well, unless a camera comes on, then there is a different persona that comes on with chef. But outside of it, I think it has to be, and somewhere I don't want to say this without sounding very wrong, but as a gender role, most of the kitchen will listen to that male figure than they will to a female figure. I have been there for 4 years. All the chefs know me well enough. They listen to me when Chalu is not there. As soon as Chalu comes, they look at Chalu saying, now that you're there, can we listen to you rather than her? So it is a gender role that works well. There are times when chef is in a bad mood and like he said, you know, there is language. So he very politely says, you know, either close your ears or please go out of here, otherwise I won't be able to communicate with my team the way I want to communicate.
The nice thing about having the two of you on this panel is that you seem to have cracked this conundrum of sorts that, you know, I'm a woman, I have limitations in terms of child, timing, this and that. But I'm also passionate about the food business or the hospitality industry, whatever. And you found formulas which work for you. You know, in the case of Divya is a company of her own, and you know, from what I've heard, frozen foods. Is that yeah? That's. So this transition from, I know Amita wasn't a chef ever, but since you were a chef, the transition you took to become the entrepreneur, how did it work? Did it work differently from the way, let's say, Shankar moved from a chef to an entrepreneur?
Well, I think, speaking of Amita, I think being a woman in the hospitality business is difficult. Like, I think both the sirs mentioned, it is physically very demanding. But I think, I've been, I can speak for myself in the fact that I've been passionate about food since, I can remember my childhood. I decided I wanted to be a chef in 4th class. So, I was lucky enough to have parents who didn't teach me any kind of gender stereotypes. So I'm kind of, it's ingrained in me. But I also thank them because I understand perceptions. That, yes, we live in a place where, you're told, okay, you can do this, you can't do this. But I think having a good understanding of both has helped me understand really what I want and chart my path, as possibly Amita has also done. So I think moving, I completed my TMTP, and that's a Taj management training program, and I joined Taj Deccan, and I didn't work for very long in a new role, and due to health reasons. And then I was asking myself, what I really wanted to do, because it was at a stage where I really couldn't get back to the hotel. So luckily I'm married to a chef, Gopinath. That was a childhood dream as well. So both of us decided to quit our jobs. Both of us are very family-oriented people, like most people are. But I mean, our choice was very clear that if we left the hotels, which would be 18-20 hours minimum a day, we wouldn't have a family life. I'm not talking about having kids or anything, but in the sense of even just being with, parents or, extended family, siblings. So that's when we decided that we would quit our job, and trust me, we had, at that time, very reasonably lucrative jobs as compared to when we started business, and like mentioned, put in all our savings. So it was extremely scary because neither of us had any kind of business experience. And we are not MBA grads from any kind of reputed school to speak of. We even understand the ABCs of business. So honestly speaking, it was pure passion that did drive us. Obviously, life gave us not just a couple of knocks, a lot of knocks. And I totally resonated with your story, because we started with the dream of doing niche catering, something like the Culinary Lounge, and at that time the city was not at all ready for it, and we also got published, and then we realized city's not ready, so let's do something that we love. And we went back to our Delhi days, where we were a gang of 5 friends, Gopi and me included in the 5, and we used to drive through cold Delhi winters, and at the middle of the night after finishing the shift, obviously the irony of the job is you don't get to eat much because you're busy cooking it. So we used to drive through and we used to have these hot plates of momos. So we thought, let's bring momos to the city. So we were the first in the country to bring chocolate momos and colored range of momos to the city. And we put in about 6 to 8 months of research, and we thought, okay, we have the vision, we have the plan, we got a kind of semblance of what the city would like. And we Hyderabadis are proud bhaji eaters. We love our bhajis and punuglos, and I'm included. I'm included in that. And so introducing that was extremely difficult. So moving from there, we became a snacks manufacturing company in 2013 when we when I had the opportunity to go to the US, and I realized we're doing something really great. Oh, we're doing frozen snacks, and we're not adding any preservatives to it. So, I learned about myself through somebody else. So, that was a great exposure, and, we did that, and from a momo manufacturing company, we became a snacks manufacturing company when we did the first order for 12,000 spring rolls for Ramcharan Tej's wedding, through a 5-star hotel, of course. And we've been fortunate to be associated with Sir and a lot of other companies as well. And in 2013, we actually shut down 14 of our outlets. We had retail outlets in corporates and other things, and up to 2013, that was our only source of revenue. So we kind of shut that down and became a B2B industry. So a lot of it was organic growth, but coming back to the point of chef to entrepreneur, it's not easy to be an entrepreneur. You have no reliable source of income. You have to be ready to pick up yourself every day when you're down in the dumps. And trust me, there are a lot of days when you really question what you're doing. The vision is always there, and that's possibly that, and the passion is possibly the only thing that gets you up and moving. But it's tough. But I think the upside to it is that you get to do what you want to do without, and in the way that you envisioned it, creating a baby, so to speak. Coming to the hospitality industry, I totally resonate. I remember my, as Shankar sir and Dhunji sir was speaking, I had this discussion with one, Mr. Yogi Sriram, who was the HR head for the Taj Hotels Pan India. And he was had this discussion, and I said, I agree that that we are all under pressure, and गाली गलौज होता है, but when are we going to really stop and question it? And I'm not saying that I never give a gali, so to speak, till I asked him that question, so, and I still don't. But yeah, that's my upbringing, and I don't say the right and wrong of it, but I'm just questioning. Have you ever questioned it? जब हम माँ बहन की गाली देते हैं, तो no wonder. I mean, why? I know a lot of girls who do it too, and I'm not questioning that, but I'm saying, have you ever questioned why we do it? Yes, the pressure is there. Anyway, so that's one, and physically demanding, yes, 18-20 hours. Well, physically, women are built differently. But I think the flip side of this, as to how I possibly, I did earn a good name, if I might give a pat on my back myself, in the hotels, because I worked without thinking of whether I'm a female or a male, or without being gender conscious. So I'm to a point I can say gender averse. I think that creates a lot of limitations in our head. So as to what we can do and what we cannot do and what we must do and must not do. I think if we approach each other as on a philosophical level, so to speak, as possibly just human beings, life is a lot easier.
Okay, as I actually anticipated, we've got very logical reasons for why women chefs are a minority. And it's very easy and very comfortable to live in that zone. And it's not just in the chef situation. There's similar arguments in different professions. In advertising, we keep talking about, the women fade out much faster. The men stay on and they become old sages, and there's no, maybe with the exception of Antara Sinha or something like that, there is no advertising legend who's a woman, because most of the women, the moment they got married or they kind of say, thanks a lot, it's been a great experience, but no more. Right? So I see that we're talking about a similar kind of situation. But I come back to my first impression, my understanding, that honestly, forget all these physical limitations. If I was to look at an outlet which was run by women and women chefs versus an outlet that was run by men and men chefs, would there be a substantial difference in the quality of food, in the quality of service? That is a question that I would like to.
That's a very good question, Vijay, that you have asked. Can I just attend to that after taking off from what Divya said? So, the first one was a little bit gloom and doom. There is a dearth of women chefs, and I've done some work on that. Don't have very much data on India, but worldwide is 20%. Now, 20% chefs is not a bad figure when you compare it to other industries. Coming to what Divya said, of the CEO chefs, I just said 20% is the overall figure, but of the CEO chefs, it's 35%.
Oh.
Chefs who have become CEOs are 35%. You all know what a Michelin star chef is. Okay? 40%. I've done this homework and now 40% is the representation of lady chefs as far as Michelin is concerned. So there is huge recognition over there. Now, answering your question, women can bring a lot of creativity, which men don't necessarily bring. There are people who do that. So if you're saying that if there's a lady chef, would she be able to come up with a restaurant which can be as good as that? Why not? Why not? In fact, the icing on the cake would be that the women would be able to finish off a dish with its garnishing and with its embellishments far, far more superior than probably the other two. Because they had that kind of creativity in them. They have that kind of innovative spirit in them. They can also innovate. So if there's anything of an extension of your biryani you want, you'll have to get one of these lady chefs who possibly, and I'm speaking now out of experience, said that why should a biryani be always served just like a biryani? To retain the temperature of the biryani, because very often the biryani comes to your table a little cold. So the biryani, the parda on the biryani was an innovation of a lady chef. I hope I've been able to answer your question in that manner.
Yeah, I think, sir, what I would like to add is that, again, what I said earlier, I think the bane of men is that we are not inclusive of women. And the bane of women is that we are not inclusive of men. And it is really not about whether women are better than men or men are better than women. It is, are you working hard enough for what you want? And yes, on one level I agree that you have to generate opportunities, because it's an age-old tradition, so to speak, of Asian cultures where women are traditionally left behind. Men are breadwinners, but I think we're seeing that change now. And I think I'm for one that we should, the more we talk about it, the more it is out there for people to know that yes, you can do it. But I think for the fact that the moment you would say that women make better CEOs, women are possibly more creative, I don't agree. I mean, chef is sitting right here, and Vikram chef is sitting right here. I mean, I think it is all about how much are you applying yourself to what you want to do. And like I said, I am totally gender averse in the sense that the more you are, the less conscious you are of your gender and more conscious you are of who you are, the better you would become at what you do.
absolutely second that. There cannot be any difference. It's upon the individual's drive and personal take on the whole profession as such.
So was the topic that we started off with something wrong? At the end of it, you are looking at an experience that you're going to offer, whether it came from a man or a woman, really shouldn't matter. But it has become politically interesting to debate about how come not enough women in the business.
Well, we would like it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've always liked lady employees. I've never had a problem with that. But just imagine that for a moment, let's assume, and almost axiomatic, that a female addition to your team would make a substantial difference. So we started off by talking in terms of the kind of facilities that you can possibly provide, and I'm only looking at some of the establishments here in Hyderabad which are driven by women, but they seem to have cracked this timing issue. I'm not free at breakfast time because I have to look after my children, I have to send them to school, blah, blah, blah. But from the time they go to school to the time they come back from school, I'm free. So can I do something which is maybe run a concierge or do a patty cake kind of thing? And then I'm back at home by the time the children come back, and I'm available later at night in case I have social engagements. Is there some way we can formalize this into a women initiative?
Answer that? With the payroll costs going crazy, absolutely, what we are heading towards is exactly how the West is operating. We are going to be getting into a part-time scenario where non-professionals are going to be coming and working, which is what you find in most of the establishments abroad. And you could be having a banker who's coming in doing a 4 hours of waiting and going, where the pay scales up paid by the hour and all that. I see us going absolutely the same way. When we started, the payroll was at 8 to 10%. Today we are on 20 to 24%. It's absolute nonsensical. It's going out of control, and hence that's one of the primary reasons where retail F&B is getting challenged totally in terms of bottom lines and all. So this is where, to address that time issue, I would definitely say that there is a window of opportunity out here. Secondly, my wife, she's a creative as an interiors person. She's been a hotel professional all her life. She's never been a chef. But what has happened is, over the advent of MasterChef India or Australia and the various TV shows and all, the aesthetic sense of anybody could be across board. You need not be a chef or whatever it is. Putting together things on a plate and how to visualize the food is today, I'm completely given her that responsibility. So while I make the menu, she designs it, she puts it together, she decides the crockery, she decides the outlook of it. So that is cutting through various categories now. You don't need to be a chef to be primarily to be saying that I have to do this or that. So these are the things which is changing over time, which is welcome in a way, and which actually beats the gender equation totally, completely.
Thank you. Can we invite Divya? Thank you for sharing the journey. Mr. Shankar, thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. Mr. Dhunji, thank you very much for sharing. Last but never the least, Mr. Vijay Marur.